Look out, something is going to get you tonight. Let's talk about the thing that's going to get you tonight. Welcome to the Happy Harvest Horror Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Corrie.
And I'm Brian, and this is the Happy Harvest Horror Show.
We're back. I feel like we've had a couple of weeks of a little bit different content. We had a throwback to doppelgangers, and then we had our crossover episode. But now we're back, me and you.
Back in the saddle. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that crossover episode. I hope we can do more things like that. Hopefully we can get some guests in the show, have more conversations, more experiences. As it's not just us that like spooky stuff. Other people like spooky stuff too.
What?
Yeah. So I hear.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think it's just me and you.
Spooky jury's out.
Before we find out how spooky each other's lives have been, quick things. If you like us and you like this show and you have 1 minute to write us an iTunes review, would really appreciate it.
Yes, pretty please.
We've gotten a few cute ones, and we really appreciate them. They're really great, and it's just how it works in the podcast game. You got to get those iTunes reviews. So
it's our lifeblood. We can't survive without it.
So yeah, if you could do that. Also, if you're really enjoying this and you got some spare change you want to donate to keep us going, you can do that over at anchor.fm/HHHS/support. There are some different options on there for you. Makes it really easy to set up a little donation to keep us pumping out the content. And yeah, if you'd like to do that, we appreciate it. We appreciate
donations.
You.
It's our other lifeblood. We have multiple lifebloods. But
I would even say money is more of our lifeblood than Apple podcast reviews, but
no, I think validation means more.
Fair.
To me and my self-esteem, at least.
All right. So got that stuff out of the way. Brian, how spooky was your week?
Oh my gosh. It was really spooky. I had a great fucking weekend. Oh my God. I posted earlier last week in if you follow our Instagram, that I was attending the Nightstream Film Festival. And what's Nightstream, you ask? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Nightstream is a new sort of virtual film festival that kind of a big pivot for a number of other film festivals around the country, one of which I was set to go to this year, but it was sadly canceled, and that was the Overlook Film Festival in New Orleans. And that film festival has banded with a number of other ones, including the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, which I frequented every year while I was there, and basically brought a bunch of stuff to be viewed virtually online, just on your comfort of your home. And it was so cool. It was so cool that basically I got to see all these new movies that were, in the festival circuit, and I could just see it at home. That's always been the kind of problem with film festivals, is that you have to travel to it or have to be, living in the area. But this was all just right on a website. And I got to see a lot of really cool stuff. I saw 10 movies over 3 days. I saw a number of panels, some really cool Q&As. And so, yeah, that's what I was up to this weekend. It was really great. The first one I want to talk about was called My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, was the title of it. And it was this vampire story that's told through this lens of this like extreme poverty family situation in America. And God, it was just devastating. You have this basically 3 siblings, grown adult siblings, and a brother and a sister are taking care of their younger brother, who has this, they don't give it a title in the movie, but he's basically this new kind of vampirism affliction where he needs blood to survive and he can't go out during the day. And so the brother and the sister, working long hours during the day, have to then go and basically find people to kill and bring home so they can keep their brother alive. And they then take all of the clothes and the remains of the people and bring it to a thrift store to make just a little bit of money to keep going. And it was just such a devastating sort of reflection on living with nothing, in this world, and how literally, if you're a family, all you have is your other family members to keep you going. Yeah. So that, my gosh, I was in a wreck after that movie. There was a movie called Detention to keep an eye out for sure for. It was an adaptation of a video game of the same name that is set in Taiwan during the 60s, during a scary authoritarian government situation where they can't have any sort of
scary authoritarian. Yeah.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty far-fetched. We don't have anything like that now.
Yeah. I don't know what that would be like.
In this school, they weren't allowed to have any sort of communist, what they would deem communist propaganda or paraphernalia or books or anyway. And it tells this really kind of moving ghost story. And I don't want to tell too much more about it because it might come out soon.
Ooh.
And it was really good, really spooky. And what else? I saw a movie called Black Bear that was at Sundance this year, starring Aubrey Plaza.
Ooh. And I was just going to say, I love bears. And then you said Sundance. And I was like, oh man, like I love Utah. And then you said Aubrey Plaza. I was like, oh, love her too.
It's like a Stefan skit. This movie's got it all. It's got black bears, it's got Sundance, and Aubrey Plaza. I don't want to say anything really about this movie other than those three things because there was such a sweet turn.
Completely sold.
And yeah, I think just overall, this was such a rad festival. To be able to sit at home and see all these unreleased movies that would be going through the festival circuit, and how they were able to emulate a festival experience through Zoom was kind of a really awesome triumph. They had a Lifetime Achievement Award for Mick Garris. If anyone doesn't know Mick Garris, he's a huge champion of horror movies. He was a reporter for a while, and then he wrote Hocus Pocus. And he's directed a number of other movies, but he is also the driving force behind Showtime's Masters of Horror, which was this kind of anthology show where he brought together all these really prolific horror directors to direct just a final cut sort of story of what they wanted to do. And it was rad. It was really cool. And so the closing night ceremony was all of these horror icon directors basically giving a toast to Mick Garris. And I was nerding out because they didn't say who was all going to be there. Just they said it was going to be Mick Garris Lifetime Achievement Award. And then one by one, the Zoom windows keep opening up. And then Mike Flanagan comes in, and Tom Holland, Fright Night director, comes in, and John Landis comes in, and John Carpenter comes in for like 2 minutes because he's John Carpenter and he got out of there real quick.
I don't have time for this.
That's John Carpenter. I love him, but that's him. And so it was, my gosh, it was just rad that I got to kind of sit in and see this.
No, definitely. I feel like that you just really pointed out something that's been really interesting about this whole Zoom culture thing. Like when it first all started happening, I remember not being sold on like the late night TV, like Zoom episodes and stuff like that. And then I was watching an episode, a Zoom version of Late Night with Seth Meyers, and he had John Mulaney on. I adore John Mulaney and I adore Seth Meyers. And I felt like I was on a Zoom call with John Mulaney and Seth Meyers. And I was like, actually, this is amazing.
It feels weird, right? Like I felt like
it feels oddly intimate. It really does.
I didn't want to speak up at all because I didn't want to interrupt any of these icons, while they were talking. Yeah, it was really cool. And there was even a Q&A panel after I did a horror comics panel, and I got to ask a question and I got it answered. And so it was even more personal.
Wow.
Really rad. So awesome experience. Hats off to everyone at Nightstream. Pivoting away from my spooky encounter of Nightstream, we could talk about a shared encounter, and that is Netflix's Haunting of Bly Manor, which I know you were watching a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Did you finish it?
Of course I finished it.
Oh, man. I didn't finish it because I don't know if you heard, but I watched 10 movies this weekend.
Oh my God, you haven't finished it? Oh,
no. Brian. I have 3 episodes left. There's not enough hours in the day to watch 10 movies over 3 days. I made it through 6 episodes of Bly Manor, and I think that was a feat.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a lot. I kind of want to wait till you finish it before we talk about it.
Can we just talk broad stroke that I love Mike Flanagan and I love the series and I want more?
Sure.
There, I just said it.
I was just really surprised, like when it popped up, because I didn't realize that they were going to do another, Haunting at Hill House basically thing. Like,
Oh, you didn't know?
no, I didn't know.
Oh,
I didn't know about this. Started watching it, and then I was like, okay, there's a lot of the same actors, and so it's kind of doing like an American Horror Story thing, you know?
Yeah,
with
but
like,
good. Yeah.
but good.
Fighting words.
I mean, I don't really have a dog in that fight. Like, I'm not very attached to American Horror Story. I just started watching it, actually.
Yeah, we don't need to get into it. I just wish it was. I always want it to be good, and then it always turns into something that I can't. But that's okay.
Yeah, I've on the American Horror Story thing. I'm on the first season, and I am enjoying it for the sake of just like spookies. Like, it's pretty scary. I'm like maybe 75% done with the first season, and it just goes so many directions, and I'm just like, what is happening anymore?
That's my problem with it. I feel like it always starts off like a really cool premise. Like each season was like, all right, I could get into this cool thing, and then by episode 3 or something, it is off in like another planet, that I'm like, God, just stick to stick this one landing, and I would love you, but we are like 17 plots away from where we started, and I can't keep up.
I got a lot of people telling me I need to watch Coven, so I'm definitely going to watch that season.
Yeah,
Coven. And we'll see from there. But
Murder House, the first season, was, if I had to have a favorite, it would be that one. I think that
I am enjoying it. Like, I there are things about it I really like, but back to Haunting of Bly Manor. It's so good. I actually have so many things to say, but I really would I'd prefer to wait until you finish it so we can have like a full conversation about it.
Okay, so next episode we'll have a deep dive
into
it. So everyone see it by then, because spoilers abound on the next episode.
Yeah, because I'm not someone who really gives a shit about spoiler alerts. So like, you better finish watching it by next week.
You got 1 week, kid.
You got 1 week. Do it. It's not that hard. It's very good. It's very
good. It's not hard to get through, because you're gonna love it. At least I do. I love it. I loved Hill House so much. I thought the first season of Haunting of Hill House was damn near masterpiece. So
I very much enjoyed Hill House as well. I think Bly Manor's better, considerably better.
Whoa!
Yeah,
I can say right now, 6 episodes in, that it's not as scary as Hill House, and that's okay. Ghost stories aren't always inherently scary, but I do think Hill House was far scarier.
Yes, the resolution of this one is pretty wonderful. I can't wait. I'm not going to say. I can't wait. I'm going to finish this.
Are we done here? Let's wrap this up so I can go watch more.
Okay. Yeah, let's just. Okay, that's all you get for this week, because Brian has to go watch.
Yeah, you got it from here. Okay, bye. But yeah, that's as far as my spooky stuff this week. That about covers it. What about you? How spooky was your week?
Bly Manor took up a lot of it. I also had a weird moment where I thought I maybe saw some sort of unidentified flying object. So that was pretty spooky.
A UFO, you say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might have just been a weird star, but but I was I know, right? I was taking out the trash a few nights ago, and there was this like star looking. My first instinct was like, oh, it's a star, but it was really, really bright, and it was like yellow. And then I looked around the rest of the sky, and I couldn't see a single other star because of just the like light pollution and stuff. I'm like, okay, so I can't see stars, but I'm seeing this one star. Like, that's weird. And it I just like stared at it, and I couldn't quite tell because it was really far away, but it kind of seemed to be like moving a little bit, like floating, hovering type vibe. And I was like, maybe it's just my eyes. I don't know. And then I just stared at it for like a long time. I think I even like in my head said like hello to the aliens in case in case they are aliens. I want to say hello. So I think I was just like, hey, what's up? And then I turned around and I started walking back to the apartment. I was almost back to my apartment, and I like turned back around to look at it again. And I swear it was higher up in the sky, almost like a following me thing. I don't know. It was a moment. It was, it was spooky. That's for sure. Whether it was an actual UFO or some kind of a star or, I don't know, maybe a, whatchamacallit. I can't think what they're called.
Star whatchamacallit is probably.
No, those things that float in the air.
Fireflies?
No. No, the things that fly in the air and take pictures.
Drone?
Yeah. Maybe it's some kind of weird drone. I don't know.
What is an alien but a weird drone?
Exactly. So that was pretty spooky. I think that was my number one spooky thing I wanted to share.
Okay. That was spooky. I hope somebody was just kind of also taking out the trash at some point that night and looked over and saw you staring in the sky going, hello.
Hello, friends. Take me with you.
Oh, before we move on, I just wanted to say one more thing about Nightstream because I cannot believe I glossed over this. There is a puppet horror movie. I shit you not, Corrie.
Oh my God. You just, you know what you just did.
I know what I did, and I was so insulted to myself that I almost didn't do it. Let's talk about it. It was called Frank and Zed, and it was set in this kind of medieval village where this evil sorcerer died, and years later left a curse. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it follows these two basically leftover servants of this evil master. One is like a Frankenstein character, Frank, and then this zombie that takes care of him, Zed. And they're like these leftover sort of like discarded servants that are just kind of keeping each other alive indefinitely in this crumbling castle. Obviously the villagers come and there's a bloodbath at the end, but it took them 6 years to make this, and it is such a, oh my God, it was a riot. It was so funny. There was a whole battle at the end, and there was so much gore. I've never seen so much puppet gore. It was amazing. They like filled like these puppets with like slime and guts that would come out. I was losing it. I had so much fun. I hope this comes out very soon because I think this one is going to be a cult classic immediately.
Yeah, I need to see that. That's so funny that you bring that up, actually, because the other night I was watching one of my all-time favorite movies that I've seen a truly absurd number of times. I was watching Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, yeah, that's got a lot of puppet stuff.
Well, not only does it have puppet stuff, but it's puppet horror. It's a Dracula musical.
Yes.
And I had a moment watching it where I was like, I forgot that the puppet musical was like spooky. Like I forgot that it was supposed to be like scary puppet musical. So that's just such a interesting little synchronicity. Puppet horror. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. The company that made it was called, what was it called? I think it was something like Puppet Core or something like that. I was losing it. I had so much fun in this movie. So keep an eye out for Frank and Zed.
I love puppets. I love puppets.
It was so good.
I love puppets. I love puppet people.
I hope there's a lot of spin-offs of this, that it creates a whole subgenre of puppet horror.
Puppet people are such good people too. Like,
yeah, they are, aren't they?
They really are. Like, I mean, like obviously Jim Henson and stuff like really set the bar. But even like the other day I was on TikTok and I came across a really great puppet video, and I commented. I was like, I made it to puppet TikTok. And typically, like, I didn't anticipate a response because it was a really big account. And the person on the account like commented, and they were like, welcome. Like, thank you.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Love puppets.
Well, I'm glad I got that in before we transitioned because, oh my gosh, it was so fun.
Let me know when that's out. I need that in my life for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Today we're going on a nostalgia tour. We are being #90s kids today. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about some of our favorite spooky, just gateway books, TV, movies that like turned us into weird, spooky kids that then grew into weird, spooky adults.
Yeah, this is a 90s, specifically 90s, because we grew up in the 90s. Your humble host here, talking about the stuff. Yeah, exactly what you said. The gateway stuff that turned us into who we are.
I think an important question that I actually want to start the episode off with, and we can just let it ruminate throughout the episode, is did this media turn us in to weird, spooky kids? Or were we weird, spooky kids first that then were attracted to the media? So it's like a chicken and an egg situation.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we the way that we are, Brian?
Or are we going to circle back at the end?
Let's circle back. Let's circle back after we talk about all these things. We have honestly so much, such a long list. Let's start with books. Let's start with the books that we loved as 90s children. Do you want to start, Brian?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about 90s kids horror, we got to talk about Goosebumps, right?
Duh.
I mean, that's That if the 90s gave spooky kids anything, it was Goosebumps. It was fucking Goosebumps. And not only books, it also gave us a show, and a lot of them. My gosh, how many books did it end up being? I feel like
I don't know,
at least 100, right? I collected them when I was a kid.
Wild. In kind of preparing for this episode, I was thinking about Goosebumps, and there are just some of those book covers that are just fried into my brain. Like,
oh yeah, I can tell you the whole story just from that one cover.
Yeah, and the images like really stuck with me. Like, there's one, I ended up looking it up to get the title of it. The book is Egg Monsters from Mars.
Amazing.
But the image of that terrifying egg on the front cover, it's in my brain forever. It will never leave. Even the colors of the cover are like yellows and like darker reds, and there's just this like monstrous egg yolk on the front cover. And I remember that book so specifically, and I don't even remember the story actually. I just really remember that image.
There's a few of those that I feel like the image sticks more than the story. Like the number one comes to mind. Goosebumps number 1, Welcome to Dead House. I feel like I remember reading that story as a kid and being scared, like actually scared about that book. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this story? What is this Goosebumps? And it was kind of a fear that I never was able to kind of replicate. It's kind of like chasing that dragon with scary stuff. You're like, I want to get scared like that again. And but you asked me what Welcome to Dead House.
I gotta get my high.
12-year-old Brian's like, I got my fix. How do I get that again?
Goosebumps got you hooked.
Yeah, I mean, hooked. I couldn't tell you what the story was about. Welcome to Dead House. I know that he comes to a new town in a spooky house that's dead. Yeah, then I ran out of gas, but
yeah. There was also one that had a really terrifying rabbit on the cover. Do you remember that one?
Was that like an Easter one?
I don't even know, but I just remember the rabbit. I think it was like magic. I think it was like a magic one because it was like a creepy rabbit in a hat or coming out of a hat. I want to say.
I like that they also, I mean, we were talking about creepy imagery on the covers and everything too. I think that sometimes it got pretty existential scary too. Like I think of one story that I thought was going to be really dumb. I remember reading it as a kid thinking this is going to be like kind of a filler one, but it was called Let's Get Invisible. And it's all about this kid that wishes
on a t-shirt.
Let's get invisible. But the story is all about this kid that I think he wishes it or he gets a wish or something, but he becomes invisible and then no one can see or hear him and he can't go back. He can't like reverse it. And like just true dread of like, as a kid, like, oh my God, what would I do? How do I, if no one could see or hear me, then you're stuck in that situation. So yeah, stuff like that. I feel like R.L. Stein, hats off to you for respecting your kid audiences and actually trying to scare them. I
actually have a fear that, and I am like, not to be like that person, but I like when it comes to like, I have existential fears, obviously, but like, I don't know, when it comes to just like life stuff, I'm just not afraid of a lot of things. And I really never have been. Like I have existential anxiety, but other than that, like I'm just like not very afraid of a lot of stuff. And I have a weird fear that I think I can trace back to a Goosebumps book. I want to reread this book because I don't know if I like created it from the book, but I'm pretty sure it came from this book. There is a Goosebumps book and it's a choose your own adventure. And it's called Beware of the Purple Peanut Butter.
Oh, yeah.
And I swear there was an ending. You know how Choose Your Own Adventure works. You have all sorts of different endings that you can end up with based on the choices you make. And I swear there was an ending where the main character gets stuck, like locked in a freezer, and then it just ends. And I am terrified of being locked in a freezer.
And then it just leaves you there? Oh, man.
Yeah, that's like a fear I have. Like, I've worked in food service for a really long time, and it involves going into walk-in freezers a lot. And I like every time I'd have to go back there, I would like prop that shit open. Like it was like it was always a thing. Or like I would like run in and run, like grab what I needed and run out faster than it took for the door to close because I just like did not want to be in there.
In and out real quick.
Yeah, just like boom, boom. I know what I need. Just get it.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
And I think that goes back to a Goosebumps book. I'm not sure. I feel like I need to revisit these stories. Maybe we should start a Goosebumps book club.
I think that'd be really fun. I mean, these are like 150 pages. These are
I think it'd be a good time.
Like they're super easy to read. But my gosh, they were. I attribute a lot to them, especially collecting them. I'm a huge collector now of a lot of spooky stuff, and that might have been an early bug of getting each book on my collection on my shelf. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Goosebumps! But those weren't the only spooky books out there
at
the time. Even though they took up a lot of them and all their spinoffs, they had, Goosebumps Presents. Let's give you Goosebumps. It was a lot.
Goosebumpy times.
Goosebumpsy time. There was also, I guess it's more late 80s, but we definitely had them growing up in the 90s, and that's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
I've got it next to me right now.
Do you have a whole collection?
No, I've only got the first one, and I bought it recently. I just don't have any of my books from when I was a kid. I don't have like any of my stuff from when I was a kid, but it was originally published actually in 1981. The first one was.
Right.
And then I think number 2 was late 80s and number 3 was like 1990 or 1991.
So it counts.
Oh, it totally counts. It completely counts. What's crazy to me, honestly, because first off, the illustrations in these books are horrifying.
Those are really the stars of the show here. I mean, the stories are great and they're really iconic, but my gosh, the art is what really, I think most people will remember it.
They are horrifying. What's interesting to me is I remember reading this book at my elementary school, like being in my elementary classroom and reading this book. And like, I went to a Catholic school, like, and this is like, and I was in like first grade.
Mm-hmm.
This book is not chill. Like the images are not chill.
They're horrifying. Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of PTAs got this book banned from their school because of the stories. And a lot of the defenses to keep it there was because it's folklore. All the stories are based on actual folklore stories. Also, they redid the illustrations in 2011, which was a big... We don't talk about it. Do not disgrace Scary Stories by even bringing it up.
Did not happen. Yeah, it was a bummer. The 2011 illustrations are so 2011. Like they really are just so sugary compared to the original ones.
Yeah, they're almost tame, right? I mean, because the stuff that is true, like nightmare fodder. That's like what I would see closing my eyes at night, and I would never sleep. Yeah, and totally. I cannot say the same about the new ones.
Yeah, the new ones are very, very, very sugar-coated. And I think it reflects something I also want to talk about at the end of the episode. The shit we were brought up on in the 90s was just darker. Like, it was just scarier.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
Like, it was way darker. Like, adults they just didn't care about sugarcoating that shit for us. The way there was a big transition that happened early 2000s in terms of kids media and like what was allowed or what was considered okay in a lot of mainstream channels, because the stuff we grew up with, and I'm not even just talking about like stuff that was intentionally spooky. I'm talking about like the weird shows like Rocko's Modern Life and like Ren and Stimpy. Like we just grew up on like weird shit that would not pass.
Fever dream stuff. Yeah,
fever dreamy stuff. Yeah, that just
eating our sugar cereal and just ingesting all of this sugar TV,
Yeah, exactly. And so much. There are definitely examples of 2000s TV that do a better job. Like I love Adventure Time. We've talked about Adventure Time before.
Love Adventure Time.
But a lot of 2000s kids media just very, very sugary. I like thinking of 90s Nickelodeon as just a giant fever dream.
Like, did it happen? It's It's the Mandela effect where we all know what Rocco's Modern Life is, and we know.
But yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a perfect example of that, I think. If you haven't read them, like, or looked at these images, like, do it. They are scary. Like, they are and they're beautiful too. Like, so
all
well
black
done.
and white too.
Yeah, so well done. Also, like, those were the two, like, series that I had. But I also was really big on books of ghost stories when I was a kid. I remember having, like, these books, and they were written for a young audience, but they were like 101 ghost stories, or like true ghost stories, stuff like that. And once again, I wish I still had them, but I remember really getting into those.
I think that'll come up a lot as we talk about this, but we had a lot of content that was available that if you were a kid and you wanted spooky stuff, there was a lot of content that was geared specifically to that, I'm not a child today, so I don't know if it's the same out there, but what was available, I feel like there was just as much as what sci-fi and fantasy stuff, horror was also hugely peddled to kids in the 90s. That's what I thought, The fact that we had this huge running Goosebumps story, Scary Stories was as popular as it was, probably brought up all these other spin-offs that wanted to catch that same fire. But I don't know. I wonder in 20 years if kids that are today are going to look back and what content are they going to say, that's what made me love horror, or that's the kind of stuff I loved. Or is there
honestly, I think kids now are growing up on, like, weird absurdist YouTube videos, which is, like, terrifying in its own right.
Yeah, they're watching, like, playthroughs of video games and stuff,
and just, like,
it might
some
be,
weird shit. Like, really, there is weird shit on kids' YouTube. Like, it gets weird, but in a very different way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't want to get into this pattern that's probably as old as the hills of going, like, kids these days.
Yeah, right. We do a lot of trying to, like, break up, like, generations to, like, understand people and stuff, and it's just our attempts to, like, make sense out of the chaos of life and time. What is interesting, though, is just kind of going off of what you're talking about in terms of how much, like, spooky content was peddled to us in the 90s. I wonder if that's related to the fact that our generation, like, millennials, love Halloween. There was such a big upswing in the last decade of just, like, loving fall, loving Halloween. Like, so many people get excited about this time of year, and I think there is a nostalgia tied to it, and I wonder if it is tied to exactly what you were saying. Like, we were also just kind of inundated with a lot of spooky Halloween related content too,
This could also be we just came out of the 80s, so 90s, or the 80s was pretty dominated by a lot of classic horror movies. If one thinks about what's the best decade for horror, that's a long conversation, but 80s is a kind of an easy pick. So I'm wondering if when you're looking to make money, how do we gear this really popular thing towards a wider audiences? How do we get kids to like it more?
Yes.
Well, we target them with this more kid-friendly content.
But at a point in time where they didn't really understand what kid-friendly meant.
Yeah, that's air quotes around kid-friendly because...
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so as far as books go, those are the two that really come to my mind is Goosebumps and Scary Stories, because that's what I grew up reading.
Yeah, definitely those. And then, like, I would have, like, ghost story books. I also remember I was really young when I bought my first, like, witch book. I remember being probably, like, 9 or 10, and in, like, it wasn't even a Barnes and Noble. It was, like, a different 90s bookstore in the mall, and getting, like, a witchy fortune telling book or something.
Amazing.
Like that. I don't know. I was really into just spooky books as a kid. Like, that's pretty much, honestly, that's most of what I read as a child. Like, to be completely honest, was spooky stuff. As a kid, I wasn't a huge reader. I wasn't not a reader either. I was kind of but it was the stuff that I did read was ghost stories, was Goosebumps, was witchy things most of the time.
I had a book that was a handbook for ghost hunters, is what it
Yes.
was. I remember it because I journaled in it. I had I got ready, I was preparing.
You did the work. You did the
I
preparation.
did the work. I knew the difference between a poltergeist and a common haunting. I knew the difference between like that kind of stuff was fascinating to me, though, and I definitely wasn't alone.
Yeah, totally.
Should we pivot to more spooky content for kids than just books?
Yeah, I think we should take a quick break first, and then we'll come back and talk TV and movies.
All right, we'll see you in a second. And we're back.
Back at it again.
Back in the spooky saddle. So we were talking about a lot of spooky books before in the 90s, and now we're going to pivot and talking about some spooky... What do you want to do, movies or shows first?
Let's do TV.
TV. Okay. Well, I got a lot to talk about with TV. Where do we start? Should we start by channel? Because, my gosh, there was a lot. Let's start with Nickelodeon. Let's go with get this 90s staple out of the way, which was... Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yep.
What were they called? The campfire...
The Midnight
Society?
Society.
Yeah, that's it. The Midnight Society.
That's badass, though.
Oh, my gosh.
Society?
The kids that just gathered in these furniture in the woods to have...
creepy little campfires, and it was interesting, too, because I watched a few episodes in preparation for this, and they would present their story.
Oh, yeah.
They presented it to the Midnight Society, like for approval, which is interesting to me.
They had wisdom to share. I mean, this was like a TED Talk each time for their spooky story.
Oh my goodness.
I remember one, I also went back and rewatched some, and there was one about masks, and the young woman was going around and talking about masks, and sometimes they cover who we are, but sometimes they show who we really are. And my gosh, I think we're skipping right to the thesis here, of what this episode is.
Honestly, Are You Afraid of the Dark definitely played on those existential fears as well. It got, quality wise, very cheesy 90s kid actors, but the stories were pretty dark sometimes. And,
I got scared.
Oh yeah. And also we have to talk about the opening title sequence is still straight fire. It's so good. It's so scary.
It's just stock footage of haunted places.
Yeah, it opens with that creepy wooden boat in shallow water in the dark, and it's just rocking.
The floor of an abandoned asylum, and then then they light the match, and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I'm like, at this point, yes, I am.
And even that moment, the lighting of the match, and then brilliant. Such a good title sequence. Well done. 10 out of 10 on the title sequence, for sure.
I loved that show. But that's another thing with just Goosebumps. I've pictures in my head of specific moments. I remember one where these faceless, I guess aliens or monsters were coming, but they just didn't have anything on their faces. That goofed me as a kid.
Yeah. That
big old goof. There was one where they were stuck in a mall too overnight.
Yes! Oh my god! I'm so glad you brought that one up. It's the Pinball Wizard episode.
The Pinball Wizard episode.
Yes!
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know why. Maybe you can enlighten me. That episode is fried into my brain. And when I thought about Are You Afraid of the Dark, the first thing I thought of, I was there was an episode where they were in a mall, but I think they were trapped in a game of some sort. And then I looked it up and I was Pinball Wizard. And then I watched it again and I
It doesn't hold up.
But why? Why
I don't know.
that episode stand out so much? Why? I don't understand why that episode is the number one episode I think of when I think of
that. I don't know. I'm speculating here, but we got our own little kids horror movie with that. It wasn't a spooky ghost story or anything. It was kids stuck in an abandoned, usually populated place. Something that horror movies do a lot, but this one was very much playing off of no supervision. Cool, right?
Also, I guess
again,
90s mall kids. I was such a mall kid.
Mall rat.
I was such a mall kid. Literally, I remember one Christmas break, my mom worked at a kiosk in the mall. And so I wasn't in school. I literally roamed the mall all day long, every day.
Maybe
of
that's
Christmas
why
break.
it sticks with you then, because
it might be.
a familiar situation in an unfamiliar context.
Also, that one is dark. It doesn't have a happy ending at all. Homie just gets stuck.
Yeah, straight up stuck.
So there's no resolution. It's just like you're fucking stuck here now. Like, end of story. Everyone go home.
And then they put out the fire at the end.
Put out the fire.
And they're
the
like,
end.
chew on that, kids.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe
it was
like getting like afraid of being stuck in the mall forever or something.
Too much of a good thing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that
I also remember, and it came back to me in rewatching the episode. I had a little kid crush on the like nerdy boy that tells the story.
Oh.
The one with the glasses?
Maybe that's why it sticks too.
I don't know, but I remember he started talking. I was like, I had a thing for him when I was a small child.
Did you look him up where he is today?
No, I should though. I really should.
See what he's up to.
If you're out there, guy from Are You Afraid of the Dark?
That show also got rebooted recently. I haven't seen any of the new episodes, but there are new episodes to Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any, so I can't speak to its quality or anything, but I know it's being show run by a fan who was a kid when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I hope it's good. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I also just watched right before we recorded. I watched an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark that was about cannibalism, and it was also like very 90s fat phobic.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing in going back and looking at all of our, your 90s like favorites. It's like, how many problematic ideas that were ingrained into my young mind are there?
You're riding that nostalgia high, and then they drop a joke that you're like, ooh.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Yeah. What other shows? Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's a staple of the 90s for sure. I think others... Real Monsters.
Yep. Real Monsters.
Talk about fever dream cartoons. That was definitely in that realm of what am I watching?
What was the guy's name? The one that held his eyes in his hands. He was my favorite.
Icky. He had monster names. I can't remember what they were.
I'm going to look it up.
And monster names.
Real Monsters. Oh, yeah. I think you're close. Ickis, Oblina, and Crumb. He was Crumb, right?
With the hands? Yeah, he was Crumb. Yep.
Yeah.
Holding his eyeballs up there.
Yep.
Yeah, Ickis was the little goblin, the purple goblin. Mm-hmm.
That was a good show.
It was a spooky show. Yeah. More fever dream. Like, what am I looking at? That we were just saturated with, And
it was a golden time for cartoons, for weird cartoons, for sure.
You want to talk about golden time for weird cartoons? Let's pivot to the Cartoon Network with Courage the Cowardly Dog. Do you remember this show?
I didn't. So, I wasn't a huge Cartoon Network kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big Nick kid and kind of a Disney kid. I do remember that show, but I remember nothing about it.
I watched this show a lot. I loved this show. And this show, talking about crazy animation, was so smart in how it had its scares. There was one episode specifically that will haunt me to this day. I goofed me up, where there was this robbery in Courage the Cowardly Dog. If anyone's unfamiliar with the show, shame on you. It's so good. But it's all about this dog that lives with this very American Gothic sort of family in the middle of nowhere. And scary things happen to him every episode. But the scary things that happen, the animation is so inconsistent. Like the scary creature of the week was always radically different per episode. So you couldn't even settle into a consistent animation theme. Which this one episode that really goofed me was the King Ramses' Curse episode, where these robbers steal King Ramses' slab from his tomb and they drop it off. They ditch it because they're in a high-speed chase right outside the house in the middle of nowhere. And the dad, Eustace, he's not a dad, they don't have kids. Eustace is like, I'm going to make a lot of money off of this. So they keep it, but that brings about King Ramses' ghost comes to the place and brings about these curses and these plagues. And out of nowhere, they're in this 2D animated crazy thing. There is this early janky 3D rendered King Ramses and wailing, "Return the slab or suffer my," and 10-year-old Brian shit his pants, like, what am I looking at? And it holds up. I mean, I went back and looked at it again and I'm like, yeah, that's still messed up. Like the early 90s, like they've just figured out how to do 3D rendering, and it's so uncanny and so not okay to look at.
Yeah, that would be a fun game. Is it still messed up?
10 out of 10, still messed up. And sometimes they would have like, there was one episode where the harvest moon was tormenting them. And it was just live action face on top of the cartoon that was in black and white and like sunken eyes. And you're like, what am I looking at? This is so scary.
I feel like I need to watch more of that show. Like I really didn't watch it much as a kid.
It was all over the place talking about sugar TV. This was Courage was always emoting all over, I don't know. Yeah, but definitely would recommend going back and watching some of these, because this show is stuck in my brain of like, how did this get on TV?
And now I'm just kind of thinking about like specific episodes of things. So a specific episode that I've watched many times as a child and also many times into adulthood. Still fantastic. Still one of my favorite Halloween episodes of a show was the Halloween episode of Boy Meets World, where they all get trapped in the high school and they're being like chased by a murderer. You remember that episode?
Vaguely. I remember them being trapped in the high school.
It ends up
I don't remember much more.
It's so good. They get trapped in the high school for like detention. It's also like the episode where like Corrie and Topanga have broken up. It ends up being a dream.
One of the many times.
Yeah, it ends up being a dream, but they're all trapped in the high school. And then there's a cameo by Jennifer Love Hewitt, because
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yep, I Know What You Did Last Summer was like big at the time, and like it's just people keep getting murdered. Like they straight up get murdered in the episode, and they're trying to figure out who's doing it. And
I gotta go back and watch this episode.
So good. It is one. Boy Meets World was one of my favorite shows, but it is a really, really good scary episode. And yeah, once again, talking about like Boy Meets World. This is kind of going off the topic a little bit, but Boy Meets World is actually a perfect example of the kind of like sugarifying of TV. Boy Meets World, I think, was a fantastic television program for like kids and teens. Girl Meets World, not good. It just was not so good, and it didn't have the same realness, and I feel silly saying Boy Meets World was like a legitimate depiction of reality, because like it wasn't. Like, no. The Girl Meets World reboot was so just 2000s sugar, and I just felt like it lost its whole it lost what made Boy Meets World special.
Was Mr. Feeney in the new one, Girl Meets World?
Yeah, I think so. I think he makes a few appearances.
And he couldn't save it. Oh, no.
I know. And I think that Halloween episode is a perfect example. I don't think a Disney show today, I don't think that they'd even have a Halloween episode where everyone's getting murdered. You know what I mean?
Well, this is such a great transition about Disney today, because Disney then had so much kid horror. If we're still in TV shows, which there's still plenty to talk about, even just Disney. Remember the show So Weird?
I like literally was just going to say that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that I transitioned right into this, because it was Kid X-Files. And I think it only had 2 seasons, though I remember it being forever. Maybe they just reran it to death,
so weird,
but
just always existed.
So weird.
It never began and it never ended.
So weird. Yeah, I remember. I loved that show. That was fun. This was kind of I was maybe just a little too young for when it first came out, and I really kind of missed it, but I knew of it peripherally, and I went back and watched a few episodes since then. But Erie, Indiana, do you remember this show?
No, I saw it. I was like doing research, and people kept mentioning it. I did not watch it. I'm not familiar.
I remember seeing things about it maybe as a kid, but it just didn't stick as much as these other things we're talking about, in my upbringing at least. But I mean, it came out on I think it was NBC, its initial run, and then it was syndicated on the Disney Channel, and they reran it until 96. So maybe I just missed it, because I was born in 90. So I went back and watched a few episodes of it for research, and that kind of holds up. There's some like really fun spooky kid horror in that. Yeah, it's all on Amazon Prime. So if you want some of that, and that's very much like wild kind of creature of the week sort of thing. Not really creature, but scary situation of the week. And yeah, I dug it. I wish I had it more as a kid. It would influence me even more, even though we had plenty of other spooky content to go through.
Yeah, on the subject of So Weird, I think that show might have been the like transition point. Like that might have been the breaking point, because that show ran till like 2001. And I feel like that might have been one of the last really kind of weird, dark shows on Disney for a good long while.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as shows, they still had plenty of movies. Do we want to go into the movies now?
Yes, I think so. I'm
Unless you
checking.
had any other shows.
I mean, we can give shouts out to Tales from the Crypt / Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, that was. I thought about that one too. That one's definitely HBO adult, Tales from the Crypts, but there was Tales from the Crypt Keeper was the cartoon, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if my parents didn't have HBO growing up, but that definitely wasn't HBO. That was the show. That was CBS, I think.
Tales from the Crypt still kind of sticks out for me because like that was very interesting in compiling this list. I had a lot of freedom growing up. And so I definitely
so Tales from the Crypt is like, it's good kid horror.
Yeah, like I watched a lot of things that were not for kids at a very young age, and most of the time my parents knew about it too. Like it wasn't like a me being sneaky thing. It was like me watching like horror movies with my dad.
Anything, yeah.
I do remember watching Tales from the Crypt, like the actual show, as a young kid, which is an adult show.
100%.
Like it's definitely an adult show. I have more memories of that than I do Tales from the Crypt Keeper, but I do remember Tales from the Crypt Keeper. I definitely watched it. A very, very kidified cartoon version. So yeah, I guess even though it's not technically like, even though Tales from the Crypt isn't really a kid's show, it definitely informed my spooky kid life.
100%. I also, before we move on, I just have to give a shout out to a recurring character in not a scary show, but this character was terrifying in the show Salute Your Shorts. Do you remember this?
Oh my God.
You know what I'm going to talk about? Salute Your Shorts, Zeke the Plumber. Do you remember Zeke the Plumber?
I don't know.
He was, while I'm talking about it, quickly Google just Zeke the Plumber.
Okay.
To get an image, because I can't quite describe how horrifying it was to see this as a kid, because he would just show up in the middle of the night.
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's this plumber that shows up in like this Salute Your Shorts. It was all in this like summer camp.
I'm having like PTSD right now.
I'm so glad I brought this up.
Oh my God. I completely removed this from my memory.
Well, we're going to put it right back there. Slot it right where it was. He shows up just kind of out of nowhere in this summer camp show in the middle of the night in their bunks. And then there's this plumber that's plumbing away at a fucking toilet in the middle of the cabin. And his face, he's got like a bandage over a bloody nose. The face is like a mask of his actual face. So like the eyes and the mouth don't quite like match up. And it's so uncanny and upsetting, and he's just plunging away, and the kid's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, and he plunges out his like childhood stuffed animal, and he's like, "Well, let's see what else we got in there," and he takes the plunger to the kid's face. Messed me up. Like, and I know there's plenty of other kids like you apparently too.
Yeah, no, that was seeing that image for the first time in, I don't know, 21 years. like that just like hit, like that was like a moment I just had. That was crazy. Damn, that show was weird too.
That was a weird show. Whoever thought this mask would fly on this kid show? Like, look, it's a bloody nose that's bandaged. Yeah. It's upsetting.
Horrifying. It's horrifying.
Yeah. So
Jesus.
Zeke the Plumber.
Well, that's gonna visit my dreams tonight.
Oh man. All right.
Well,
So now we go on to, I guess, movies.
movies! Yay!
'Cause there was a lot of fun movies. And going back and compiling the list of scary movies that I watched as a kid, I was shocked at how many of these were Disney Channel movies. That like feels like sacrilege and crazy to think about that. But like Disney Channel may have contributed to me being such a horror nut that I am today. Because we list off the movies that I remember watching as a kid in the 90s, and you got Under Wraps. Great stuff.
Oh my goodness, Under Wraps. I forgot about that one.
And the mummy wakes up in the full moon, and then the kids are going hijinks to get the mummy back, right?
Yeah.
You had Phantom of the Megaplex. There was like this whole Universal Monster Kid version like saga that went through. Tower of Terror.
Even like, I mean, this is more sci-fi, but like Smart House. Remember Smart House?
Yeah, that was also Big Brother scary, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of like scary sci-fi, I guess, for kids.
Mm-hmm. Halloween Town. Why we love Halloween so much. That was also was great. Don't Look Under the Bed.
A whole town about Halloween.
Whole town had it. Don't Look Under the Bed. Do you remember this one? Where like the boogeyman it follows this the main character Frances, and she has this imaginary friend that was kind of really spooky. He had long nails and like glazed over eyes, and yeah, that was an upsetting movie sometimes. So yeah, I mean, they were all these like Disney Channel spooky movies. They weren't just shows. They had these actual full productions that were great that I think about looking back. I'm like, yeah, I loved those movies. Yeah,
no, the Disney Channel original movies like were fire for a while there. They were really good.
Yeah, they were great. And
great.
not even just original movies. You had like Hocus Pocus.
Okay, beloved by all.
But not by all. Did you see that Rotten Tomatoes at the time? It's got like 17%.
What? That's insanity to me.
Maybe not 17. I gave it a little
one of the most
37%.
It is one of the most beloved movies, I feel like hands down.
Now it is. At the time, it got panned by critics.
Well, I don't really care what critics say most of the time.
Well, how do you watch this movie and think Gene Siskel says in the Chicago Tribune, he says dreadful.
Oh,
like
Gene, you have no soul.
I know a lot of people care what you think, but like
no,
if you hated Hocus Pocus,
so like yeah, it's just it's so good. It's so good. I haven't watched it yet this season. I need to do that. It's even become in recent years like having like Hocus Pocus watch parties is like a thing.
It's become the new A Christmas Story, on show on TV. It's every Halloween season. It's going to be playing
a Halloween Christmas Story situation. Totally,
100%. And why wouldn't it be? You got Bette Midler as the star witch, and mid-show she has this show-stopping music number. Like it's amazing.
It's so good.
All shot in Salem too.
It's everything you want in like a spooky but still very like happy, family friendly kind of Halloween movie. It's like the perfect balance.
Yes, it was. And
like it is scary. It's definitely scary, but like I'd watch it with young kids. You know what I mean? Like it's got it all. It's perfect.
It is a perfect movie. I would agree with you. It's a
perfect movie. Hocus Pocus. I don't remember that critic's name, but he can shut up.
Gene Siskel. He's renowned by a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people, but he's historically hated horror movies. So this guy, let me go on a Gene Siskel rant for a second, because this guy
let me just
hated, I think it was the first Friday the 13th so much that in his review, he just spoiled it to push people to not go to it. Fuck this guy.
Yeah, that's a weird move. That's a really weird move. That's like a you need to go to therapy move.
Yep. He's historically hated all horror movies, but maybe not all. I don't know.
I mean, that's fine. You don't have to like horror, but like I don't know.
You do.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
But just to be so angry about a horror movie that you like want to ruin it for people, like that's weird. That's a weird move.
I agree with you. But the spooky movies don't stop with Hocus Pocus. We also had, and I'm sure you're going to love this, Casper.
Yes, Casper. I'm going to like start crying.
Casper's great.
Casper's so good. And it's also probably the reason I'm like not opposed to falling in love with a ghost.
Can I keep you?
Oh, no. No.
whenever I think about this movie, I think about that house that he's stuck in, with the 3 other ghosts. That house is fire. And the roller coaster chair.
Yes! The dream!
Dream. My gosh.
Yes, the weird, creepy roller coaster that goes down the basement. Yes.
The fact that Disney World did not capitalize on this is you're leaving money on the table. There's an entire generation of people that are foaming at the mouth to ride that fucking chair.
So true. It's so true.
Love Casper.
Oh my God, Casper. I need to watch that too. I feel like all the biggest classics though, they don't end up on streaming this time of year. You have to buy them.
Maybe, if they're Disney, they're all on Disney Plus now.
I don't have Disney Plus.
You should probably get it.
I've had it on and off. I just don't want to pay the thing consistently because I don't watch it enough.
Well, they announced the other day that they're Disney's restructuring their whole entertainment focus to be streaming now because of, not because of COVID. It's just made it go there faster. But yeah.
Maybe I'll do another month so I can watch some spooky stuff. I do that. I'm starting to do that with a lot of streaming services because I can't pay for a million streaming services every month, but I can pay for a month and then be okay, that was enough. For now,
just binge everything. And then,
I'm just gonna I'm just gonna watch some stuff. I'm gonna have this one this month, and then then we'll switch to something else. It's not feasible to have all of these streaming services.
Yep. That makes sense. Yeah. We're getting to the pay per channel basically now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Casper.
What do you have?
Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, yeah. This is a kid's movie, kind of. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. By 90s standards, I think it was a pretty typical kids movies, to quote John Mulaney when he's talking about Back to the Future, how in the 90s there weren't really kids movies. It was just there were movies and
kids
could kind of see them.
100%. That's exactly what this is.
That's what Edward Scissorhands was.
They weren't even family. It was just you could bring your kids.
Yeah,
that's what this movie is.
It's fine. I legit think the first movie I ever saw in theaters, I was probably 5, was Jurassic Park.
That was probably one of mine too. Yeah,
and Jurassic Park is
horror.
Yeah,
it is horror.
Exactly.
100%.
It's not, it's not Dora the Explorer. It's
they were playing fast and loose with PG-13.
Exactly.
Before the 2000s.
But yeah, Edward Scissorhands. I actually watched this movie just last year because I went as Winona Ryder in Edward Scissorhands last year for Halloween. Along with the rest of the art history babes. We were each Winona Ryder from different movies.
I remember seeing that picture. That was great.
Yeah, it was really fun. So I obviously watched the movie before Halloween, and it is a good movie, man. It is a really good movie.
So sad and tragic. It's good.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Edward Scissorhands. Once again, I don't know what this is saying about me, but similar to falling in love with a ghost, I would have fallen for Edward Scissorhands too. He's so sad and lonely, but talented, and he's
so
he's just
goddamn talented.
He wants to be loved, but he has scissors for hands.
So what do you do?
What do you do?
That's what the movie was. What do you do? Riffing more on Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas, which. If anything on this list, if anything we talk about today, and just in the grand scheme of spooky life, I have to attribute my whole love of spooky anything to this movie. I remember my mom got me this movie when it came out in 93. So I was just old enough, 3 or 4 to register what I'm watching. And it's not just colors in my face, You're
actually able to make, conceptual understanding out of the world.
And my mom bought this movie because it was geared towards kids, Disney, whatever. And she recalls quickly regretting it because it's very scary imagery, And I was enamored. Oh my God. And I still am to this day. This is one of my favorite movies ever made.
I like imagining your young child, your mom's first child. And she buys you this movie, and I just imagining your mom's reaction to you being as a baby being super into this creepy movie.
Mom, you seeing this shit?
Oh no, what have I done?
It's too late because it was already my favorite movie, and I would watch it over and over. That clamshell was in pieces by the end of that VHS. Oh my gosh, I loved this because it was unlike any other movie, save for maybe James and the Giant Peach at that time.
Oh my god! I was literally just gonna say, weirdly, my version of that was James and the Giant Peach. I was obsessed with James and the Giant Peach.
I also love James, but if I had to kill my darlings, it would be Nightmare for sure.
Yeah. We should do, when we get into Christmas time, we should do a Nightmare Before Christmas episode.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's both. It is both. It is both a Christmas and a Halloween movie.
Exactly. That's why I feel like if we're an all-year Halloween podcast, it would fit in the December slot. You know what I mean?
Okay. We'll wait till
do you not want to do it?
No, I just got to that, like the age-old question of, is it a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie? And I'm like,
it's definitely both.
Oh boy, it's both. Come on.
It's definitely both. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally down for doing that. I love this movie so much. And I love it for the same reason I love James and the Giant Peach, is because of its animation. The stop motion animation is such a labor of love, and it pays off so well. It is, you're witnessing magic watching stop motion.
James and the Giant Peach is just another like weird, creepy one too. Like I didn't even think about that one, but
very creepy. Oh my gosh, his parents were killed by a rhino in the sky. Was the metaphor they were going for. And I remember her creepy aunts, in this like horrifying house also on the hill.
Living in a peach. Like
I wanted that peach though. I wanted to eat it.
I know. It looks so damn good. It looks so good.
And you're going down this giant peach, you're traveling across the world, and the creatures were so very scary looking. Yeah. I remember the one time they make the peach fly by wrangling in a bunch of birds and then flying on the birds. Do you remember this? And the birds themselves look like they're on their last legs of life, And
yeah.
these are like healthy birds that they incorporate. But I love this movie. What else do you have?
What else do I have? Okay, so I think Gremlins.
Was that 80s? But we grew up with it, so it's okay.
Yeah, I think it was late 80s. But I had like a stuffed animal gizmo, like loved me some Gremlins. I also did I remember in like middle school, it was like really cool to wear t-shirts with like kid stuff on it, like Care Bears and like Gremlins and stuff. And so I had like a Gremlins t-shirt. But yeah, that's another, I guess technically like Halloween/Christmas movie.
I think it's more a Christmas movie. Yeah, I mean, it's Halloween because it's scary, but it's definitely
maybe
a Christmas
we should
movie.
do a Gremlins episode in December as well.
Oh my gosh. These are adding up here quick. So we're going to have to do just Christmas horror.
Right. Christmas horror. And Christmas horror is very interesting. Like it's
a whole genre for sure.
I'm definitely into diving into that for sure. So Gremlins, Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen this movie since I was a child, but I recall being really freaked out by it. Like I've recalled feeling not okay watching it. And I don't know if that's because it was actually scary or if it was more that like Ernest kind of creeps me out.
Could be that one. I actually, the most memories I have with this movie are just seeing the cover of it at like Blockbuster, and always seeing it and going, I don't know about this Ernest guy, and never picking it up.
That's how I felt. Like I remember watching a lot of Ernest movies when I was a kid because my dad liked them. They were never my favorite. And I remember Ernest Scared Stupid actually like scaring me to a certain degree. And I think I just like got weird vibes from Ernest. I just was not feeling him. Like it's not about that guy.
Something's eating Ernest.
Yeah, something about that I was not into. So yeah, Ernest Scared Stupid. I also have these are later 96 to 99. So like I'm getting up into, those like pre-pubescent years. I gotta give a shout out to the film that 100% shaped my pre-pubescent love for witches, which was The Craft.
Oh yeah,
Teen Witch classic,
which is coming back very soon on Hulu. Have you seen that?
I don't know. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to this one. I'm kind of like I don't know.
Getting more Craft, Corrie.
I'm like side-eyeing the reboot personally, but we'll see.
I'm going in full speed ahead.
The original is so good. It's still so good. It's still terrifying. And it also like shaped me into, I don't know, witchy, but like it's got that like girl power, girl gang vibe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was like spooky meets 90s teen aesthetic. And that was just at that age in 1990, like 1997, 98. That's all I wanted in the world. Like, that was everything. Yeah, exactly. Like, cause I was, I think it came out in 96. So yeah, like 98, I was 10. So, you know, I'm at that age where I'm like getting excited to be in like middle school and high school and stuff. And then I also like scary shit. So it was just like everything. I loved that movie. I still love that movie. I will, of course, watch the reboot, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. And then also, just coming in 1999, coming in on the
Just in time.
Just in time. I was from the get-go obsessed with the Blair Witch Project, like right when it came out.
Full stop. We're talking kids movies here. I know you were fast and loose with what you got to watch.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, I know we talked about a lot of kids stuff, but like my childhood was not just kids.
Oh, we were talking, I like So Weird and Casper and Blair Witch Project.
That's just, I have to bring it up because I really was like, I was obsessed with it like when it came out, and I was 10. I was a kid, so it was very much like, for me, it was gateway horror, but it was actual horror.
There's nothing gateway about it. It was the Blair Witch Project. I don't think you understand the prompt here.
I do. I'm trying to just be honest with what my media consumption looked like in the 90s.
Okay. Well, then, I'll throw one in there too that was not children horror, but I saw as a kid and it goofed me for a long time, and that was Child's Play.
Oh yeah. That movie, dude, that movie was the highest grossing film the week I was born.
For good reason. It was very scary.
I know. When I found that out, I was like, yeah, I'll take that.
Oh my gosh. Really goofed me. I saw it at a cousin's house when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing a deep dive in why we are what we are. It was because I saw Nightmare Before Christmas at age 3 that it was my favorite movie? Is it because we had all this content? Is it because I saw Child's Play 2 way too young and it scared me into adulthood until I finally went, you know what? I got to go back and face my fears. And, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all of the above. Maybe that's why we're all what we are.
Yeah, right. I think that's all I have on my list. Was there anything else I missed?
I'm so happy you asked. Addams Family and Addams Family Values.
Yes. Addams Family's on Netflix right now. I've watched it like 3 times. It's so good.
So good. It's also, I saw a tweet recently about how unusual it is just to see an example of a husband and wife deeply in love with each other in a show. It shouldn't be this scary, but that it is. It's seeing an example of a man that is just deeply in love with his wife.
Morticia and Gomez are just, they're
their dream couple.
It's the only time you will ever hear me use the term couple goals
is Morticia and
Gomez. Yeah, and the fact that their relationship is in the context of Addams Family, even they're seen as odd, is very telling of American culture. Like, they're odd, they're weird because they are deeply committed and in love with each other and have a healthy sex life. Like,
spooky.
Oh, so spooky.
Oh man, yeah. That's all on my list.
Yeah, Addams Family, I feel like, is another good example of that, like, 90s movie that like kids could see, and like it wasn't not for kids. Like, it was kind of for kids, but it's also like pretty weird and dark in certain
so
ways.
Dark. You had the Wednesday and what's the brother's name? God, we're such frauds. Wednesday, but she's obsessed with just killing her brother all the time. Like.
She's also obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle. And it stands to reason she should have succeeded every one of those attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every one of these schemes should have killed her brother. God, I love those movies. Yeah. So, I mean, if we look at this, like, all this content we were given, we're basically getting children primers for a lot of actual horror. I think the Disney Channel, Under Wraps, Tower Terror, Phantom of the Megaplex. We're getting Universal Monsters, classic monster stories that are like being fed that way. We're getting these like so weird kids X-Files. You can graduate to X-Files soon, and all these like episodes, these Halloween episodes that are basically mini slashers, that are geared towards kids. That it's no surprise that when we got to an age we're like, yeah, but let's get into something a little harder. Let's get out let's get the top shelf stuff down, like what else you got in here?
Let's see how far this rabbit hole goes.
I'm still falling,
Yep. No, it is. It's such an interesting thing. And yeah, I mean, I think it really depends largely on what you believe in terms of like nature versus nurture, shit that like we can't actually fully understand. I don't know. I think it's really easy to be like, oh, this content is exactly why you are the way that you are. I also think it's way more complicated than that. And I don't know. I've explained my love for creepy things and the occult and like darker culture as like, I don't know. It really does feel innate. Like it really does feel like something I just came into this life with, And I think I also came into this life at a time where there was a lot of like spooky kids content. So it just kind of like they played off of each other, I do think there is a connection, as I said before. I think there is maybe a connection with the deep nostalgia associated with all this content and why a lot of people in kind of our age bracket, our generation, really feel like a strong love and a strong nostalgia for autumn and Halloween.
Yeah.
I think there is a connection there in terms of like the content and our just Halloween experiences as kids, 100%. But yeah, I guess just personally speaking, I also just think there is a bit of me that is just like a dark soul, in a good way.
Dark soul.
Yeah, not in like in a good way, like, and it's just stuff I'm attracted to, is like darker culture and just always was without even understanding why as a kid, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that story about Nightmare Before Christmas is a great story too, because like at 3 years old, you're taking it in, but you don't really know what you're taking in either. So there is something to be said about it just being attractive to you. You know what I mean? A little 3-year-old human with a darkness inside of him.
Just needing to be fed, must be satiated.
Exactly. I'm really looking forward because this is connected to this conversation. I'm really looking forward to a future episode on why growing up Catholic makes you spooky.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion we can have for sure.
That's definitely part of it too.
Oh, there's a lot brewing in this pot here. That is my life. This
has become like therapy for us.
I know. Going back to kids these days, what are they? I'm fascinated to see what they're going to latch onto, future horror fans specifically, because we had all this kid-centered or kid-focused, content that was shoveled to us. But I feel like nowadays with like Netflix and all these streaming services that are, unless your parents are savvy with parental controls, you just have the full gamut of what's out there, to go for. Exactly. So I'm wondering if, especially with YouTube, you can just look up anything now and it's going. So I'm wondering if younger and younger audiences are digesting just the actual top shelf stuff much younger,
I mean, I think that is pretty real. I mean, that's also interesting to say because like I feel like my upbringing was kind of like that, like, but I didn't have the internet, I just had like HBO. But I do think there is something to be said about, maybe even just like a kind of, if there's some level of desensitization that like is going to lead to even just crazier, more out there horror stuff from future generations when they get to the age where they're making horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's, I read this somewhere. I wish I could cite it or it was, but there seems to be kind of trends in horror and waves that it comes in pretty tame, spooky stuff, goes spiritual, like ghost stories, and then it goes back into like slashers, and then it goes into the really crazy, wild stuff, and then it takes kind of a break for a while before the content reboots. I mean, this isn't like law for everything, but it's just kind of how history is kind of done.
Everything works in cycles. Like I believe that above all.
And they were citing it to be like, once you get to like the Clive Barker Hellraiser, you know, that's when things are getting like fucking wild, you know. Then horror's got to take like all right, the 90s, we got to take a breath here.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus, we got Scream, you know, let's you know, it's a slasher, but you know, in the 90s or the 2000s were the same way, where we went to the 90s, we went through early 2000s, and then we went to the torture porn, you know, of after 9/11, we had the Saws and the Hostels, and then we had a kind of a little break again, and now we're kind of rebooting.
What's really interesting about that, like, I'm glad you brought that up. What's really interesting about that, though, is like, yes, that is what was going on in adult horror. But I feel like at that exact same time, when like Saw and stuff was big, that's when kids horror was like nothing, was like not scary at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, in the adult horror world, we were like amping it up to 11, but then kids gateway horror stuff was like not scary at all.
That's true. Like, but I mean, now you have kids gateway horror. You mean, think about like Stranger Things, like that shit. You guys are lucky. That is like some high quality kid horror that you guys have. You know, that is awesome.
Yeah, so that's amping back up now. Like they've, you know, that's gotten better. I feel like it was in that exact same time period with like the Saws and stuff that I just don't remember there being like good kid spooky stuff being made. I could be wrong, but.
Well, yeah, we weren't kids at that point.
That's true.
You know, so we have
I
moved
wasn't
on.
paying a lot of attention to kids media. I was like
at that point, yeah,
17.
If there's any younger listeners out there that were at that age at that time, I would be fascinated to know what if there's content you remember, or if even, you know, if you're an older listener too, of what something from the 80s or something. What are the kids horror that you grew up with?
Yeah,
we were
exactly.
speaking pretty specifically from our 90s. We're pretty close in age, so we had a lot of layovers. But
I'd love to hear older generations, like what kind of kids spooky content was going on, and then specifically like I don't know, 2004 to like 2013. I want to know what was going on for kids horror.
What was going on in that room?
What is happening? I wasn't paying attention really at the time. So like, let me know if there was some like really good spooky kids shit that I missed out on.
I do fear for kid horror in a little bit nowadays that I think we're getting kind of a reboot now with Stranger Things. And I don't know if you saw House with the Clock in Its Walls. I thought that was really good kid horror. But yeah, I don't know. I guess Sabrina, that's more teenage, but Sabrina's great.
How did I not bring up Sabrina? How have we not talked about the original Sabrina?
Yeah, that was really good. I'm thinking about today's Sabrina. Sabrina is like straight up not even kid horror. It's just horror. That's
like a teen show, though. That's not.
That's
really
why I'm thinking. I'm like, even Stranger Things can be technically a teen. So I'm really racking my brain.
Because the Sabrina reboot, I love the Sabrina reboot, but it's very sexy. Like it's definitely like teen. Whereas the Sabrina of the 90s was like teeny bopper. It was very different, but it was great and fun and witchy.
Well, we've had a good life, and. And here at the end of it, we just wanted to say thank you.
We've been very fortunate.
And we'd look forward to hearing from listeners and seeing what their experience has been.
Yeah, definitely. Hit us up at happyharvesthorrorshow@gmail.com. Let us know if we missed anything too from the 90s.
I bet we did.
I'm sure we did.
Come on, we were kids. Give us a break.
But yeah, this was fun. This was a fun nostalgia trip. Gave me all the warm fuzzies for sure. I think I'm gonna go watch Casper now. That sounds great, actually.
Yeah, a nice chaser to Zeke the Plumber.
Oh my God. I forgot about that. No, it's right back at the forefront. Right there, my prefrontal cortex.
There he is, where he belongs.
Okay. And on that note, have a good week, y'all. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.